Hey guys, I haven't done a cosplay video in a while, and so I thought I'd do a quick one on the basic rundown on how I made my Gunblade for my Squall cosplay. This is not a very super in-depth tutorial though or anything like that because I barely recorded any footage for this because I didn't think I was going to make this video, but I decided I would go ahead and try to explain it the best I could. I did take a lot of photos along the way, so they should be able to help. I'll do my best to explain what I did. The materials I used were insulation foam, a large PVC conduit, a Dremel, different kinds of sandpaper, Sculpey clay, a metal chain, craft foam, various spray paints, a sharpie, acrylic paints, expanding foam, a small PVC pipe, different rivets, a heat wand, E6000 glue, wood glue, googly eyes, air dry clay, a long screw, and a large adjustable ring. First off, I printed off a picture of the Gunblade and had Andrew scale it to size. I'm not very good at this, so I had him do it for me. Then once that was done, I transferred the design over to the insulation foam. Basically, to do this, you have to be sorta good at drawing or at least have a good eye for proportions. I didn't take a picture of this process, but here's a photo from one of my previous props I made, and it's basically the same principle. Once you have your design drawn out, you now want to cut it out of the foam. I used a heat wand for mine because it's more precise and easier to use than scissors. Once it's out, now comes the fun part, sanding. You want to sand down every corner and every part of the Gunblade. I used a mix of fine and rough sandpaper for this. Sanding is one of the most important parts because if you don't do it properly, once you paint your prop, all the faults you made will be highlighted. Sand every inch down. I also used a Dremel to help myself out on small places and tiny details along the Gunblade. Next, I used my heat wand again to make a hole where the barrel for my Gunblade would go. I wanted to make sure the barrel was movable. After that, it was time to actually make the barrel. I believed I used a large PVC conduit for this, but I'm not sure on the size. I'm sorry about that. In order to make it sturdy and movable, I placed a small PVC pipe in the center and filled the empty space around it with expanding foam and let it cure overnight. Make sure you have a paper plate or something under your PVC conduit because the foam will stick to everything. After it had dried, I went ahead and cut off all the excess foam, and I also cut down the PVC pipe to the short length that I needed. To get the details right for the outside of the barrel, I used my Dremel to carve indents into the barrel to give it a more realistic look and to make it look more like the actual Gunblade. To cover up the foam on the inside of the Gunblade, I used a thin piece of craft foam for the front and the back. For the bullets on the inside of the barrel though, since they can be seen but only from the top of them, I used googly eyes that I painted a brassy gold. I then fitted the barrel into its slot and used a rather large screw I got from Lowe's to keep it in place. Earlier, I had made holes in the handle, which I would then stick the screw through. Onto the engraving of the blade. I printed off the graver design and taped it down where I wanted the design to be. Then with a pen, I firmly traced over the entire design front and back. This left an indent on the foam, so I could then take my heat wand and gently engrave the design into the blade. I used air dry clay to fix any cracks that may have happened in the blade while I've been working on it. I also used the clay to create any extra protruding details of the blade. Once that was all done, I primed the entire Gunblade with 4 coats of wood glue to protect it from all the painting I was going to do. In between each coat of wood glue, I used sandpaper to smooth out all the areas that were now uneven. Then with Sculpey clay, I sculpted out the graver that would then be put onto the chain of the Gunblade. This clay is great and rather sturdy once you bake it in the oven. After this, I primed the entire Gunblade with 3 light coats of black plasti dip to help even out the look of the Gunblade and to protect it from all the paint as well. It also gives all the materials the same look and texture to it. I used various spray paints in order to get the right look I wanted for the Gunblade. Then I went back in with different acrylic paints to give some more highlights and lowlights to the prop, mostly in the blade part and the engraving section of the Gunblade. After that, with craft foam, I cut out 2 pieces for the handle of the Gunblade to give it more dimension. I painted those black and attached them to the Gunblade with small amounts of E6000 glue. Don't use too much of this though because it may melt sections of the foam. Then after that, I added on the adjustable ring to the base of the blade and put in the rivets to give the blade its final touches. Hooked the chain onto the graver I made earlier and connected it to the Gunblade. Very last step was, I primed the entire Gunblade with Mod Podge. And that is it. I hope this helped you in any way. This is basically the process I go about to make any and all of my big weapon props. This is a great and fantastic way to make props. It's rather cheap and it will always be allowed at cons because it is made out of foam. I highly recommend people try this out. It can be very intimidating to do at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's rather easy. I hope you guys learned something from this, and I hope that you try this out sometime. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I can make a more in-depth tutorial on this with my next weapon.